In computational music analysis, we can distinguish between methods that start from audio recordings and those that begin with scores in a computational format. While progress has been made in automated transcription from audio to score, the technology is still limited and struggles with orchestral ensembles. A middle ground is a performance representation, which provides insights into timing, dynamics, and continuous transformations of discretized musical events. Analyzing scores or performances requires revealing the fusion of instruments into complex sound objects through clustering and voicing of individual notes. Both traditional music transcription and these higher-level analyses serve to characterize sound objects at various structural levels, applicable even to non-score-based music like electroacoustic compositions. This research aligns with the ideas expressed by Pierre Schaeffer. I am planning to develop a toolbox des objets sonores. At present, we can conduct low-level analysis of audio recordings, examining sonograms and various descriptors derived from these representations to assess general characteristics across musical dimensions. Tools like MirToolbox, which I developed, and others such as Sonic Visualizer, Pierre Coupery's eAnalyse, and the TIALS Toolbox have been made available to the research community and offer more accessible interfaces for musicologists. However, our experiences show that these tools often lack detail and suffer from low time and frequency resolution, preventing a full understanding of the music's subtleties. In collaboration with Marina Sudo, we are designing a new tool intended to provide a more practical and effective approach for detailed musicological analysis. Hence, we are releasing today this new software called AcousMuScope. This tool offers a graphical interface allowing to look at analytical representation in high details and to probe into the combination of the music and those various graphical representations. To begin with, AcousMuScope provides high-resolution sonogram. Our first application was the analysis of the piece EO by Kaya Saaliaho, and in particular the electronic tape part. Here is a sonogram of the beginning of the tape. To ease the reading, 4 staves are superimposed, the great stave, treble and bass, around the center, as well as 2 additional staves, 2 octaves above and 2 octaves below. Here we are zooming in the highest pitch region. And we can directly sight-read the sonogram and compare to the composer's tape annotation in the composition score. We could in this way see some discrepancy between the two. From the sonogram, various audio and music descriptors can be extracted. First, we will focus on spectral centroid, spectral spread, and brightness. In AcousMuScope, you can select features from a list. The spectral centroid is a measure that represents the center of mass of a sound's frequency spectrum, often relating to how bright or dull a sound feels to our ears. The higher the curve, the more there is higher frequencies in the sound. Spectral spread, the curve at the bottom, represents how spread the spectrum is along the frequencies. We can see that the two curves are highly similar. Brightness, shown in blue, indicates the relative amount of energy that is on a higher frequency, above 1500 Hz, compared to all the energy. These 3 curves are highly related with some subtle differences. But more importantly, these descriptors convey a particular reductive information compared to the richness of the sonogram itself. It could be useful for some automated technological applications or large-scale studies, but for our own analytical purposes, this seems rather too simplistic. The dynamic curve is typically represented by the amplitude of the sound. I propose an additional descriptor called event activity, which captures the density and intensity of note attacks. This provides an alternative way to describe tension and activity in music, focusing not just on the sound's dynamics, but on the lively interactions of musical elements, which can sometimes be low in energy despite their bustling nature. We can compare in this excerpt moments of high activity at the beginning of the excerpt and conversely of high dynamics at the end. One more subtle timbre aspect is called roughness or sensory dissonance. It is related to the beating phenomenon that appears when partials are very close in frequency, leading to a sound that feels rough and dissonant in a purely sensory way. Roughness is shown here in red and can be assessed relatively to the dynamics curve in black. Here, roughness is very high. Here, roughness is very low. The most straightforward way to assess rhythm is by detecting periodicities. Here are two approaches to do this. The first, called rhythmic pulsation, focuses on identifying the periodicity of percussive events. In this diagram, the vertical axis represents the period of these pulsations in seconds. Faster pulsations appear as lower lines, while slower pulsations are indicated by higher lines. The second rhythmic indicator, termed microrhythmic fluctuation, captures the periodicity of sound across various frequency ranges. This method allows us to observe a broader spectrum of rhythmic periodicities that are solely related to distinct percussion. The bottom diagram illustrates similar rhythmic representations as before, but highlights increased microrhythmic activity. Meanwhile, the middle diagram in blue indicates which frequency regions exhibit this rhythmic activity. Microrhythmic fluctuation can be viewed as a bridging concept that connects the timbral aspect of roughness with the rhythmic aspect of beat pulsations. All these features provide us with temporal curves, giving some superficial indications of salient moments in the piece. In addition, more detailed structural and formal analysis can be attempted with the help of self-similarity diagrams. Here is an example of self-similarity diagram computed from the sonogram of the excerpt shown at the top. The horizontal axis is, as usual, the temporal axis, from the beginning of the excerpt on the left to the end of the excerpt on the right. But what is very special in this self-similarity diagram is that the vertical axis is also representing the same temporal axis, from the beginning of the excerpt at the bottom to the end of the excerpt at the top. So if we play that excerpt, you can see that there are two play heads in the diagram, one going from left to right and the other going from bottom to top. Each point in the diagram shows a comparison between one moment in the excerpt, located on the horizontal axis, with another moment in the excerpt, located on the vertical axis. Warm colors indicate high similarity and cold color, low similarity. We can see here, for instance, that this final part of the excerpt has a very similar sound at this moment in the excerpt. This diagram allows the reader to decompose the music into a succession of homogeneous phases and to link together different segments in the music based on their shared similarities. You can manually add segments and add labels for each segment. This manual analysis can be saved in a file. The main limitation of similarity diagrams based on sonogram is their heavy dependence on both timbre and pitch. To create a similarity diagram that focuses more on timbre, we can use a timbre representation called MFCCs. While we won't delve into the details of MFCCs here, it's important to note that MFCCs emphasize the overall shape of the frequency spectrum and disregard pitch details, so that MFCCs effectively capture the sound's general color. As a result, the similarity diagram based on MFCCs will show broader segments of high similarity corresponding to areas in the music where the timbre remains relatively consistent. You can see here both the similarity diagram based on sonogram at the center and based on MFCC at the bottom. You can see bigger red regions in the MFCC diagram at the bottom, showing those sections with homogeneous timbre.